Second meeting of the Pari-Mutuel Wagering Taxation Task Force. Do not try to say that 5 times fast. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Adams.
Mr. Secretary.
I'm here from the district.
Okay, thank you. Senator Harper Angel.
Present remotely from the district.
Thank you. Senator McDaniel.
Present in 23rd Senate District.
Thank you. Senator West.
Present from the 27th District.
Thank you. Representative Dixon.
Present remotely from my district.
Thank you. Representative Gentry.
Present in the room.
Representative Cook.
Here in the room.
Representative Petrie.
Present remotely from my annex office.
Thank you. Chairman Thayer.
Here.
Co-Chair Koenig.
Present in the room.
Thank you very much. I want to thank everyone for their attendance today. Bonus points to those who are here in person. I'd also like to note that Chairman Schickel has joined us, as he did for the second meeting. Mr. Chairman, we're glad you're here today. I'd also like to note that Speaker Osborne has joined us today. Mr. Speaker, we welcome you to the task force. Since I became majority leader in 2013, I have not run a committee since 2012. So, members, I would beg your indulgence. My committee skills may be a little rusty. President Stivers has intentionally kept a gavel out of my hand now for almost 9 years. I think he thinks that I am less dangerous without it. But now that I've got a gavel back in my hand, I might not ever let it go. I would like to note that I have been watching movies of Chairman Schickel and Chairman Koenig to hone up on my committee operation skills. So I feel like I'm ready to go. I've learned from 2 of the best. But I did leave my egg timer at home, Chairman Schickel. I have one. Thanks. If we need it, we know we can count on you. So first thing we need to do is approve the minutes from the July 16th, 2021 meeting. Do I have a motion? Motion from Representative Cook, a second from Representative Koenig. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Minutes approved. So during the first meeting last month, and by the way, I know there are some horse industry reporters watching online today. The minutes of last month's meeting are available online. They are under the date of today's meeting because they are part of the business packet presented to members today that we approved. So if anyone out there is interested in finding out what we talked about at the last meeting, the minutes are available online. What we did talk about last meeting were the various taxes that the Pari-Mutuel industry pays and how those monies are allocated, not only to the general fund, but the various other industry funds that benefit from it. Today, we're going to take a look at the economic impact of the industry. We talk about and accept that the horse industry is a signature industry of Kentucky. It's used to promote tourism. It's used to promote business. It's often on the front of tourism brochures. Communities around the Commonwealth use it to attract visitors to their various parts of the state. But here we're going to get into the actual economics. And we're going to start with an overview of the entire equine industry and all breeds to see what the effect is on our economy. And then we're going to take a deeper dive into the thoroughbred side because along with the standard bred business, it is the one that pays the Pari-Mutuel taxes that we are examining as part of this task force. The thoroughbred side, as you will see, is the greatest driver of the horse economy in Kentucky, but not to diminish the other parts because the whole is the sum of the parts and is a very important aspect of why horses are the signature industry of Kentucky. So we will begin with that overall look by inviting representatives of the Kentucky Equine Education Project to the rostrum. They can come forward now. I also would like to note that Representative Pfister has joined us. Representative Pfister, we're very glad to have you today with certainly your representation of Woodford County. We appreciate your interest in this task force, so thank you for joining us. So we welcome Elizabeth Jensen to the table. Would you please introduce yourself and your organization for the record?
Thank you, Chairman Thayer, Chairman Koenig.
Make sure that green light is on your microphone in front of you. Okay, very well.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity today to speak to the Pari-Mutuel Wagering Taxation Task Force. I'm only going to say that once in my presentation today. I'm Elizabeth Jensen, representing the Kentucky Equine Education Project, also known as KEEP. KEEP is Kentucky's equine economic advocate, and we proudly speak on behalf of the entire horse industry, from the biggest racetracks to families with a horse in their backyard.
Elizabeth, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have many members and I'm sure citizens watching online and they can't hear you.
Maybe you should pull some mic closer.
Pull it closer. It's a directional mic, so you have to get very close and talk right into it. I can hear you. I'm waiting for some feedback from someone online. Let's do it. Reintroduce yourself and let's see.
I'm Elizabeth Jensen, and I'm here today representing the Kentucky Equine Education Project, also known as KEEP.
Well, all right. We're still getting a message that the online viewers are not able to hear her. Why don't you, can you go to the middle microphone and try that?
Better?
There, we got you now.
Okay.
If Senator McDaniel paying very close, perfect, he says.
Good.
So we know that Senator McDaniel is paying very close attention, as he always
Thank
does.
you, sir.
So please proceed. If you could start over again.
I'm Elizabeth Jensen, and I'm here today representing the Kentucky Equine Education Project, also known as KEEP. KEEP is Kentucky's equine economic advocate, and we proudly speak on behalf of all aspects of the horse industry, from the biggest racetracks and breeders to families with a horse in their backyard. KEEP advocates for policies that benefit all participants in Kentucky's signature industry and grow the positive impact that it has on our state because horses work for Kentucky. KEEP's work is not limited to thoroughbred racing. KEEP actively supports and advocates for all of the breeds and disciplines in Kentucky. Our board and membership reflect the diversity of our industry all across the Commonwealth. Today, I want to talk to you about the broader impact of the horse industry and its effect on Kentucky's economy, and how historical horse racing has already grown that impact and positioned us for even greater growth in the very near future. First, I'd like to express our gratitude of KEEP and the industry for your efforts earlier this year to preserve our industry and the tens of thousands of Kentuckians who owe their jobs to the horse industry. The General Assembly and Governor Beshear should also be commended for taking important, decisive, and bipartisan action by reinvigorating Kentucky's signature horse industry and protecting historical horse racing. Senate Bill 120 correctly addressed an unfortunate Kentucky Supreme Court ruling, maintaining the status quo and ensuring a strong future for horse racing and the many benefits it brings to the Commonwealth as a whole. Adopting Senate Bill 120 paved the way for continued significant investment in Kentucky's horse industry, which will lead to new jobs, economic growth in communities all across the Commonwealth. Thanks to the success of historical horse racing, Kentucky's horse industry is well positioned to continue strengthening our local communities and economies through investment in new facilities, increased jobs, and tax revenue that come with them. One of the most important things we need to talk about is the economic impact of Kentucky's horse industry on the entire state. The direct value of Kentucky's horse industry is $832 million. There are nearly 80,000 direct and indirect jobs provided by the industry and industry-related tourism. 24,000 of those are direct jobs. In Kentucky, 30.5% of households are home to a horse lover, And of those, 38% are minors and young people, compared to a national average of 23%. This really bodes well for an interest in our industry and future growth for the horse industry in Kentucky. We also see a boon in economic impact from out-of-state supporters also. 49% of the people that participate in trail rides across our state are from outside of Kentucky, and equine-related tourism brings in $233 million to the state. The competition sector, which ranges from local horse shows to major international competitions that the state hosts, like the annual Range Rover 3-day event, provide an additional $209 million of direct impact to the state. But most importantly, the overall total economic impact of Kentucky's horse industry is $6.5 billion in annual direct, indirect, and induced economic activity. At the heart of all these numbers is the growing impact of historical horse racing. Because of its impact on purses at Kentucky racetracks, there's an incentive for equine businesses to relocate to Kentucky. This has created a true year-round racing circuit in Kentucky that will continue incentivizing a growing industry in Kentucky and great impact beyond just the racetracks and owners and breeders of racehorses. As more equine businesses are created or relocated to Kentucky, so many other industries here will benefit. Many of the industries and jobs that are listed on this slide are not surprising, like feed mills and fence builders, but some, like advertising, marketing, insurance agencies, and the hospitality industry, might be a surprise to those who are unfamiliar with the extent of the impact and outreach of equine operations throughout the state. These types of businesses are not limited to large cities and towns occupied by the racetracks or major horse farm areas. Because of the many aspects of the industry outside of racing, local communities across the state benefit from the ripple effects of the horse industry. Confidence instilled in the industry as a result of the passage of Senate Bill 120 has spurred an exciting new economic activity. Approaching $1 billion in invested capital, which means temporary construction jobs as well as new full-time jobs for expanded and renovated racetracks and extensions. Historical horse racing, which for the last decade has driven tremendous job creation and economic development across the Commonwealth, is generating significant funds for the state and keeping our community members employed at a time when revenue and jobs are needed the most. Keeneland and Kentucky Downs have been working on opening their newest racetrack locations in Corbin and corresponding extensions in Williamsburg. Churchill Downs just announced last week that it's renovating seating in the home stretch in the first turn, as well as redesigning their paddock and turf course to improve racing and the customer experience. Additionally, Churchill Downs plans to add new space to Derby City Gaming to provide new amenities, new machines, and a 5-story tower hotel. The project is expected to provide 400 new construction jobs and 60 permanent jobs. Thanks to the passage of SB 120 and emergence from the COVID-19 pandemic, Kentucky's horse industry is back on track with innovative plans for new investment and development. COVID closures and restrictions over the past 18 months have had a devastating impact on the state's economy, including Kentucky's signature horse industry. But we're on the right track, and we're optimistic about the future. The next thing I'm going to revert a little bit to jobs and more individual impact. As we continue our post-pandemic recovery, Kentucky must embrace its signature industries that are providing jobs and moving our economy forward. One horse creates many jobs, and the majority of these jobs are not jobs that can be automated or moved overseas. They're jobs that are going to stick with our industry and stick with Kentucky. These opportunities come through ownership and their business support, track and sales jobs, medical and maintenance, trainers, and their support staff. With the growing industry, thanks to historical horse racing, the number of horses in Kentucky will continue increasing, bringing many more jobs to Kentucky and to our industry. In more detail, you can see the variety of jobs throughout the various equine employment sectors. There are a multitude of non-racing breed jobs related to the sport horse industry, show and performance events and competitions that happen all over the state. And as you know, Kentucky's home to two of the world-renowned veterinary facilities, Hagyard Equine Medical Institute and Rood and Riddle. These facilities and the many smaller veterinary offices across the state have many high-paying professional jobs. Another overlooked aspect of the jobs in the industry is transportation. In addition to just the many CDL drivers that are needed to transport the horses across the state from venue to venue or farm to farm, it also involves aviation, logistics positions, quarantine facilities, and all of those require support staff and mechanics. Education is a big component of the horse industry in our state. Historical horse racing and the horse industry is something that, within the horse industry, is not something that often is discussed, but plays an essential role in growing our industry and preparing for the next generation of equine leaders. Historical horse racing provides a steady stream of revenue to educational programs that provide collegiate training related to horse handling, veterinary medicine, industry business management, riding, and more. Kentucky's fortunate to have so many programs and offer so many different opportunities to young people across the country. In addition to giving more Kentuckians a boost in the industry, these programs also attract some of the best and brightest from around the country who are interested in our industry and come to Kentucky. Through the KEEP Foundation and the Race for Education, we provide annual scholarships to students aspiring to study in Kentucky's equine college programs. Many of the applications we receive are from out of state. Our out-of-state enrollment is significant in all of these programs across the state. With so many young people coming to Kentucky every year because they love the horse, even more of them are committed to staying here and becoming working, tax-paying members of Kentucky. Without historical horse racing, the ability to offer these many programs with such varied opportunities simply wouldn't exist. Finally, before I turn this over to Mr. Morris, who's going to talk to you more specifically about the thoroughbred industry, I want to turn to the standardbred racing aspect of the Kentucky horse industry. Standardbred racing tells an incredible story through its recent and tremendous growth thanks to historical horse racing. As you see here, the historical horse racing has truly changed standardbred racing. In addition to 2 new standardbred tracks at Oak Grove and Corbin, we've seen growing purses which have nearly tripled, which more purses means more incentive for breeding and racing horses in Kentucky. This has played out as expected in the Kentucky Sire Stakes program, which has seen nearly 5 times the growth in number of eligible horses compared to the time before historical horse racing. This growth and impact has also reached the most local levels. The Kentucky Proud series of harness racing at our county fair circuit this summer went from being on the verge of failure to $540,000 in purses in 2020. This year, the purses have increased to $780,000, a 44% growth in just 1 year, and we're seeing increased field sizes across the board. That means that more people are buying horses, more people are feeding horses, more people are training horses, and more people are spending money in Kentucky. And we're not talking about the big racetracks. We're talking about the racing fairs and meets in Ballard County, Graves County, McCracken County, Washington County, and many other counties whose ability to participate in the horse industry has been resurrected. Additionally, standardbred breeding and sales in Kentucky continues to grow, and before long, Kentucky will be a national leader in the standardbred industry also. Without historical horse racing, none of this would be possible. Kentucky's horse industry is on a positive trajectory. Despite the recent setbacks from the Kentucky Supreme Court and the pandemic, the industry has continued to move forward, investing and growing in communities across the state. As you hopefully have seen through this presentation, historical horse racing plays an incredibly valuable role in all of this. It fuels the growth of our industry. More jobs, more economic benefit will follow. Additionally, greater revenues will flow into the industry incentive programs, educational programs, and the state's general fund. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to share with you the importance of our industry today, and I hope all of you will remember that horses work for Kentucky.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Excellent presentation. We have a question first from Representative Cook.
Not a question, but a comment and a point I'd like to follow up on. Thank you, Elizabeth, for your presentation. And I want to go back to the schools and universities that we have. I know we have University of Louisville represented here with us today. I'm also very familiar with the UK equine program that's been in existence now for, 14 or 15 years since it had the equine program going there. But the growth and retention by our universities has been absolutely incredible. Almost 80% of the graduates are staying in the business, and they're staying in Kentucky. And we're getting a lot of outsiders coming here, and they're staying because they love the horse. And I just think that's something we really need to pay attention to. We have an industry here that's got an outside draw, bringing in some of the best and the brightest coming in here, and they're staying here. David Schweitzer and I were talking before the meeting. The equine program there at UK has almost a 63% acceptance rate into vet school, and they're going to vet school and then coming back and staying in Kentucky. And I just think that's incredible what we have going on there. So thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Cook. And it's, I think, also important, another tentacle of this industry. This General Assembly every budget year appropriates money for veterinary slots at the University of Auburn for Kentucky students. And if you go around and check the veterinary offices, at least the ones I've been into, most of the vets there they have a UK undergrad and they have an Auburn doctorate in veterinary sciences. And that's something that, again, that wouldn't be a program if there weren't racehorses here of all breeds to take care of. Small and large animal vets from Auburn. So that's an excellent point. And under the horses in the classroom page, only a couple of these actually receive funds from the General Assembly. The University of Louisville, through the equine program that we discussed last month, through a portion of the Pari-Mutuel tax, and then Moorhead, Murray, and Western have monies allocated to them by statute that flows through the Council on Post-Secondary Education. And Chairman Koenig and I are discussing at a future meeting, hearing from the universities that currently receive funds statutorily, as well as the University of Kentucky and BCTC, which have requested that they be included. Of course, the private universities and colleges on here are ineligible to receive direct funding from the General Assembly, but certainly UK and BCTC are not. So thank you for bringing up the education component. Next up is Chairman Koenig.
Thank you. Sticking with the education, do we know how many students are in these programs?
I don't have a number, but
Okay.
I can share
I
that
figured
information with your staff.
That was a surprise question, so if you can
Good
obtain
question.
if you can obtain that and send it to us, that would be terrific.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Elizabeth Jensen? I want to point out, I think in this deck, the most important pages are the industries that benefit by racing in Kentucky. As Elizabeth noted, there are many here, and some that you wouldn't think of offhand, that are benefited by the racing industry. And I'm going to ask staff to make sure that a hard copy of this gets placed on each member's desk, the ones who are attending virtually. And then the other one of my favorite graphics would be the one racehorse equals many jobs. We see lots of numbers on a page and paragraphs and PowerPoints like this on a whole host of industries and topics, but this is a pretty compelling page. Could you put that up on the screen? And just look at, by one racehorse here in Kentucky, look at all these jobs that are provided. I mean, that's a very compelling slide. And I would also like to note, and Chauncey may address this, but it was just announced a couple of hours ago Again, due to the passage of Senate Bill 120, Kentucky Downs is increasing purses by 8% for its fall meet coming up next month down in Franklin, Kentucky, in Simpson County. And the presence of these racehorses in Kentucky is driven by purses. And I said last month, purses are the mother's milk of horse racing. It's why people spent $60 million on yearlings at the Fasig-Tipton sale last month here in Lexington, and why they will spend another couple $100 million on bloodstock of all ages at sales at Keeneland and at Fasig-Tipton, both standard bred and thoroughbred, over the next couple of months. So those are two really important slides that I would hope the members would continue to pay close attention to. Any other questions? Representative Gentry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, Elizabeth, thank you. A lot of this was replay for me because you guys did an excellent job in the recent session in association with Senate Bill 120 in making sure everybody knew exactly what you showed us today. And I want to thank you for that. My question, I don't know whether it should be directed to you or not, but maybe somebody else in this room, maybe someone up there, but we were speaking about the education programs and how successful they have been in retainage and having our students stay here in Kentucky. And I know in my city, the University of Louisville, and the excellent program they have there, and we have a portion of the tax revenues that go to help supplement that program. And I do know there is a cap on that, and we are maxed out. And I guess my question is, as we continue to explode and grow, is there a way we can re-look at allocations there? And if there is a very, very successful program, maybe we need to relook at that and see if we can get some growth in that area.
Well, being a supporter of that program, I could address it by saying that there are those people who also think that the University of Kentucky and Bluegrass Community and Technical College, which are also focusing on equine programs that are creating jobs, that they should be included in some of that money. And so we're going to, the chairman and I met earlier today, and we're working out the topics for the remainder of this task force during this interim. And I promise you they will be illustrative, entertaining, illuminating, and maybe even entertaining, Representative Gentry. We aim to please, but that will be a topic. And I'm just going to go on the record and say, before we look at increasing the significant amount of money that the University of Louisville receives, I believe we need to hear from BCTC in UK, because they're developing excellent programs without any support from the General Assembly. And those programs have been created since the 30 or 40 year ago creation of the funding for the U of L equine program. And I think they should be considered in the mix. So we're going to give everybody a chance to come and sing for their supper. I see my longtime friend Sean Byrne here, who runs the U of L program. He'll be given a chance to come forward and talk about the U of L program. But I also believe BCTC and UK should get their chance, their opportunity to come and talk about why they should deserve some of those dollars.
Very well.
So thank you for bringing it up, a very salient point. And you are prescient in being able to look ahead and see the topics that the chairman and I are going to bring before this task force. Any other questions for Elizabeth Jensen and Keep before we move on to part 2 of today's meeting? Well done. We hit it right at 30 minutes. Thank you, Elizabeth. Excellent job. At this point, I would like to welcome Chauncey Morris from the Kentucky Thoroughbred Association and Kentucky Thoroughbred Owners and Breeders. We'll stick with the microphone that is working. Chauncey, if you could, when you get seated, please introduce yourself and your organization for the record.
Yes, sir. I'm Chauncey Morris, Kentucky Thoroughbred Association. There's a little box here. If I cancel that, will it come out?
You're looking at the wrong guy. We'll
sorry.
Don't ask me a technology question.
I'm sorry, you can't see it on your screen, but here it says join with computer audio. Yeah, we don't want to do that. Okay. All right.
Do you know how to make it full screen?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Okay.
All right, do we have our technology questions answered?
I think so.
Well done. Please proceed.
Senator McDaniel can hear me, hopefully.
Well, I have not received any text from him, so I'm assuming all is well.
All right. Okay, so Chairman Thayer, Chairman Koenig, members of the committee, as Ms. Jensen stated, we are very grateful to members of the General Assembly for supporting Senate Bill 120, something which is an additional cornerstone to the land, people, commercial market, and ultimately the horses we produce. 2 decades into the 21st century, our thoroughbred industry, which has operated here in Kentucky for 200 years, has adapted in ways 3 years ago no one could have ever imagined. We shifted sales, performed more commerce online, both wagering and horse sales. We kept our breeding sheds open, though with very limited contact, without the usual banter that makes crisp February early mornings a bit more tolerable. We have raced our most iconic stakes without fans. Earlier this year, we dealt with new emerging infectious disease threats during the foaling season, previously unseen and afflicting most farms. As most large industries, we've had to deal with our share of controversy, from how the public perceives how we care for the horse in modern times to questions of integrity. During trying times, we have not only adapted, but thanks to Kentucky's competitive business environment, we have thrived through major reinvestment in infrastructure for horses and fans, safety and integrity initiatives, marketing, and lots of hard work and wise management. Maintaining, let alone improving racetracks is expensive. You saw those values that Elizabeth had there on her presentation. That's not happening anywhere else in the United States currently. I'll talk a bit more about that, but that's a very important point for everybody to consider. And we are calibrated towards the existing tax code because of it. Elizabeth presented economic impact figures which small to medium-sized businesses to advanced manufacturing firms like Toyota share with elected officials every single day. We will share the underlying economic indicators which tell the story about racing's foundation, adaptation, and ultimately strong position for future growth. Because, as we know, it's one thing to say, we're racing for X amount of purses and maidens are going to run for this. You hear that number and it might sound nebulous if you are less than a casual observer of our sport. And I will tell you why those numbers are important. So, Kentucky is the largest producer of thoroughbred horses in the United States. As Senator Thayer said in a previous meeting, we are a net exporter of horses to buyers around the world. While we have always been known for the Kentucky Derby, Kentucky was often a stop on the way to somewhere else for major racing stables. In 1978, the General Assembly created the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund to improve quality of Kentucky racing. As with so many things here in this state, the genesis of the KTDF involved attracting higher quality horses. First, by insisting that there be no restricted racing here. An owner with a Florida bred could race against a field that would generally be populated by other Kentucky breds. May the best horse win. If a Kentucky bred won, then it would receive a supplement, rewarding excellence. The program gained ground but lost its luster when major racing states in the 1980s and 90s and neighboring states developed the Racino model using casino profits for larger purses and restricted races filled with less competitive horses. So I just want to point out on this slide here, you see Kentucky, Florida, California, New York, Louisiana full crops. It goes back to 2003. You see in 2008 a major correction in some of those states, and I'll tell you why some of those corrections happened. When Kentucky Downs introduced their stakes program, strengthened by historical racing in 2012, some of the other states began to contract. owning horses is a 100% dependent on disposable income. It is a disposable income decision that racehorse owners make. And many owners in states with restricted racing found their horses lacked value outside of these states because of the restricted racing programs, number one. Number two, also these same states increase the amount of income from the original casino operations towards their general funds. Quietly but firmly, Kentucky racing has gained ground. New York racing has always been the strongest, biggest owners, full fields, the most attractive wagering product. Thanks to public-private coordination since COVID, Kentucky racing eclipsed New York on purses for the first time. While their racing remained closed for months, we have used historical racing revenue wisely by attracting better horses, making better fields, and increasing wagering on our live racing product. And when I say full field, so this chart here obviously shows the average purse per race distribution from 2012 to 2020. This chart, there's Monday Night Football and then there's the Super Bowl. In thoroughbred racing, we have a pyramid, if you will, that we have the thousands of races that occur any given day, claiming races, optional claiming, overnight races, anything, and then it gets to the top of the pyramid that's the American graded stakes. You can see via this graph in 2012 that we, and New York, but we are the only other state here that increased our level of grade 1 and 2 races. Those are the best races, and this is a qualitative analysis that's done by the American Graded Stakes Committee. It shows that you're looking that your grade ones basically are a bit more meritorious than what's occurring in other states. They get taken away, we get added on to. So strong economic numbers make for strong employment figures, and reliable data from the University of Kentucky provides an idea on the quality of jobs within our industry. I'll actually split onto that one. This is 5 years old. I can tell you that salaries are up, and many farms and stables are starting at $15 per hour for grooms currently because we know that we have a tight labor market. Now, Elizabeth's infographic shows all those bubbles, and everybody has often questioned the quality of jobs that we give. The graduates that are going to the UK undergrad program or U of L undergrad program that are then going to Auburn, you can see that top line. This is what they're making. This is the type of contribution they're making to society. This is the only type of economic analysis that has ever come up with specific salary information, and it was a byproduct of CEDIC information studies that were performed for land use in both Fayette County and Woodford County, but it's illuminating and shows you just how good of a quality of jobs that we're providing to individuals in the Commonwealth. And this graph, if you see here, so Senator Thayer was talking about the mother's milk, which is prize money. That prize money is good, and it attracts horse fields. It attracts horsemen. You look at a condition book, and a trainer says to the owner, I want to start your horse in this race here. And what we know is here in Kentucky, while other jurisdictions have contracted, here we have actually grown our field. So not only has this historical racing product been a net gain for the purses, but also for the live wagering product as well, making it far more competitive. And this is a recent ad that we've been using. There's multiple versions. This one is at Keeneland. There's also versions at Kentucky Downs and Churchill Downs, and shows that this fall we'll be having incredible maiden purses, and that is because of a combination of historical racing, the investment that historical racing has made to association and KTDF purses, and also because of the viability of the live racing product.
Chauncey, could you explain to the members why field size is so important, why the more horses in a race are so important?
So Pari-Mutuel French for between basically you and I. Everything goes into a pot. You know, when you increase the number of betting opportunities, that the pot can grow larger, and conversely, payouts also grow bigger whenever you cash out. There's a sweet spot of 10 if you get into the economics of wagering on anything, but specifically on horse racing, that when you get to that point, that bettors will climb hand over fist in order to get the value in the market. If you think of it not about horse racing, but like a exuberant marketplace, it's why the NASDAQ is the way that it is. You want the payouts there because it's a large pot of money that you're always going to be drawing upon.
So the larger the field, the more money is wagered, which does two things. That's more money to the general fund.
Absolutely. And
more money to purses, which continues to feed the beast and get more horses here, and it starts the cycle all over again.
Absolutely. This is the last part in my conclusion, but what Senator's saying is absolutely correct. Kentucky racing will remain competitive based on our current tax rates, we believe. These numbers we shared today paint a rosy picture, but right now states like Arkansas and New York are planning to cut into our success, attracting our inventory of racehorses, fueled by profitable forms of gaming which return less proceeds to the patrons. It's taken us 10 years to couple the best horse industry in the world with a more modest form of gaming, and the dividends for Kentucky are transformational. And those are those economic multipliers, as Senator Thayer has said, that just continue on.
So I think for the education of the members, you talked of this earlier. It used to be the biggest horsemen would come for the 2 Keeneland meets and Derby week, and then they'd go back to New York or California.
Yes, sir.
But now what we're seeing is those trainers are leaving divisions here year-round, and the weak spots in terms of the circuit being Major League used to be Ellis Park and Turfway, but that's now changing. Could you elaborate on that some?
Absolutely. So everything that Senator Thayer said is correct, and moreover, you find that people not only are leaving satellite operations here. I don't want to use specifics, but we have. So let me show you a graph here. This is most indicative of it. So we know that we are the largest producer of horses by a country mile in the United States, but not all of our horses race here. So the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund, when you register for horses, if you know that you're going to be taking it out of state to start most of its life, it's not really going to bother to register it. But what we see is horses of racing age indicators ticking up, number one. Number two, there have been some major owners, major trainers that we find themselves, they've purchased homes in either Lexington or Louisville. They have established training centers or bought farms in this area because they know that they are going to stay here more time. Number two, right now it's pretty complicated to find stall space here in Kentucky because each of our tracks from Ellis, Kentucky Downs, Churchill Downs, Turfway, which is being totally rebuilt, and Keeneland are making major reinvestments to either their principal places of operation or satellite training centers like the Thoroughbred Center in order to increase the stall size, because we know that these are strategic investments, that there are more out-of-state horsemen and women that are wanting to come here and race year-round. And it was actually, if you look in the past, the Keeneland Spring meet was really the one that had to struggle and hustle horses. Fall, because of Breeders' Cup winning you're in, that would really kind of take care of itself. But right now, we're in a place where everybody wants to be here. The condition books for our racetracks.
You might want to tell the members what a condition book is.
Okay. So one of the best ways that a non-horse person told me is that they thought that on Kentucky Derby Day that there's only one race run. Well, that's not the case. There's over 10 races on the 12, 13 on the card that day, and horsemen need to know what they're going to be offering in order to plan. So a condition book is going to show you, provide you an idea of what the overnight money is going to be, and also what the stake schedule is going to be, and when you can nominate, what the prize money is, so on.
So the condition book is a book that has a list of upcoming races at a specific track, what the purses are, what the conditions of the races are, so you can know if your horse qualifies, what the distance is, what the track surface is, what the gender is, if it's restricted to fillies or mares, so trainers can point ahead of time for that particular race.
Yes, sir.
The really substantive portion of this is the fact that we in Kentucky have eclipsed the total purses offered in New York, California, and Florida. Not only are these states that have a lot more population than we do, but two of them, New York and Florida, have purses propped up by casino proceeds. Now, as Chauncey did say, we did have an advantage last year because we were open more than some of them, but it's still pretty darn significant. And I think it will continue because of the actions of this General Assembly. Chauncey, back to you.
Actually, that's all I have as far as prepared remarks are concerned. If anyone had any questions specific to the slides or any other questions, things are very good. We are not complacent. The industry is making investments in order for either sunnier days or darker days, but trying to keep business as consistent as possible.
Representative Gentry.
Sorry about that. Hi, Chauncey.
How are
Thank you for the presentation.
Yes, sir.
The slide you got up there right now, I wish it went back further because it would tell the whole story of HHR, and but I understand why you have it there because it really shows the picture of HHR after it came in. But you see some of them other states, Arkansas, that kind of shot up way prior to these times. So it actually gives a bigger picture. But anyway, I was just making that comment. But let me go to a question I think would be helpful for everybody watching and everybody that participated in the meeting last week. Can you talk a little bit about the Thoroughbred Fund? Obviously, there's a great deal of investment that goes into that fund. It's really helped us in Kentucky. Can you talk a little bit about the fund, how healthy it is compared to what it was, 10, 12 years ago when there was a governor's task force looking at this area?
Absolutely.
And just in general, talk about where those fees go and what it does to help the industry.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. We can do that. First off, I would tell you that in 2020, the Commonwealth paid out $17.5 million in Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund supplements, number one. Number two, in 2012, the number that was paid out was $6 million. So you show that's what the gain has been, number one. Number two, of course, we could prepare this slide that goes back way, way back. And actually, what I would show you is if we could juxtapose some of those jurisdictions, Pennsylvania, Louisiana, where their state programs, they were very competitive in 2012. They're not so competitive right now because of the reasons. It wasn't only one reason, but because of multiple reasons that I pointed out. But as far as KTDF, how it works, how it's paid out, it's 0.75% of the Pari-Mutuel tax. It occurs on track, ITW, simulcasting, and obviously historical horse racing. It does not occur on advanced deposit wagering. But those are the present economics of where we are right now.
Excellent question, Representative Gentry. And I remember when the KTDF fund was down to $6 million, and your predecessor, David Schweitzer, who's here in the room today and known and loved by many of us who are veterans of this General Assembly, there was a lot of grave concern because, it was really threatening the foundation as other tracks supplemented their purses from their casino profits, developed very lucrative statebred programs, which were the restricted races that Chauncey mentioned, where in Indiana, Pennsylvania, New York, Florida, Maryland, you could run for a very lucrative purse with a horse bred in that state, and it's generally considered to be easier racing, and that's why people would try it. And a lot of people would breed to our stallions, but then take the mare back to that state in order to be eligible for a statebred program. The mare or mother has to foal or give birth in that state and stay there for a particular amount of time. So, we were at a very bad competitive disadvantage, but now we have a tremendous advantage. And I don't want to disparage any other state, but those other states that were mentioned in this have some systemic problems endemic to their states and their situations there that are hindering their growth. In New York, for example, there's a very bad workers' compensation problem that trainers are facing there, where it's very difficult to stay in business because of the high cost of workers' comp, and it's driving some trainers out of the business. And we have to take advantage, just like they took advantage 10, 12 years ago. We have to take advantage of our competitive position, which I believe we have by enshrining HHR in statute. Chauncey?
When these horsemen, specifically from New York and California, that have relocated here, that is precisely what they say is Kentucky's business environment is far more, it's far more user-friendly. And forget about the purses for a second, but it's things like workman's compensation and insurance and some of the things that you did a few sessions ago in Senate Bills 1 and 2, that these are public policy achievements that have rendered not only advanced manufacturing competitive, but also Kentucky breeding and racing competitive as well.
Any other questions for Chauncey about the thoroughbred industry in particular? I think it'd be good for you to elaborate on the point that the thoroughbred industry is really two industries that are codependent, the breeding side and the racing side. As I mentioned earlier, people wouldn't have come from all over the world and spent $60 million on yearlings, many of them Kentucky bred, if there weren't racetracks for them to run at. So they are separate but codependent industries that combine into one enormous signature industry. Could you elaborate a bit on that for members of the task force?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. There is very much a nexus between breeding and racing. In 2008, if you see the Kentucky foal crop here, this is obviously when the stock market crashed, and that year, the September yearling sale, Lehman Brothers actually crashed in the second week of the September yearling sale. So the commercial market wasn't so disrupted that year. In 2009, there was a 50% correction. Now, from 2009 onward, many breeders found that they should do something that their grandparents might have done, and that is actually race horses that they could not sell. So there was a really big burgeoning product, if you will, on partnerships or syndications, where you found that breeders would either outright or through a few friends start racing their horses more. 2012, 2013, you started having the likes of Kentucky Downs offer phenomenal purses, not only in their stakes program, but also their overnights here in Kentucky, because we have generally bred for buyers around the world. They have turf racing down there. We have a lot of turf sires here. So people would take a chance and they would put together partnerships that would, my former president, Braxton Lynch, who had testified to Senate Senate or interim joint committee of L&O a few months ago. She was one of these that put together these partnerships under BBN Racing that started specifically focusing on Kentucky Downs. And then the commercial breeding market got better, but still that attraction of having horses in training, because it was a little cheaper to do it here in Kentucky versus New York, Florida, California, it became attractive, number one. Number two, we have, because the state has natural and generational advantage as far as the commercial breeding market is here, many of the larger breeders in the United States, Stone Street, what have you, they are not only racing operations, they are also breeding operations. They have large racing stables around the country. They have noticed that the racing has improved here in Kentucky. They are spending more time here in Kentucky. Therefore, it's important for them to start more horses here in Kentucky. And there's lots of reasons to do that now.
I'd also like to point out that your boss, Braxton Lynch, and BBN Racing had a horse in the Kentucky Derby.
She did.
And I think she just won a stakes race at Alice Park.
Also, yes, sir.
This weekend. So well done to her. Any other questions from members of the task force? Anyone online who wants to add to the discussion or ask a question? Very well. Thank you, Chauncey, for your excellent presentation.
Thank you, everyone.
I will also ask the staff to have the hard copy of Chauncey's presentation delivered to the desks of the members who were online today. The next meeting is September 13th. We right now have a plan for 3 more meetings. The chairman and I met earlier today and discussed some of the topics. As you know, we talked about delving into the disposition of the funds by statute. Those who currently receive, those who would like to receive, we may have a meeting where we hear from them. We may talk, and this is new, we may talk to the racetracks about having them come in and go a little deeper into the one page in the PowerPoint about their construction plans. What that means in terms of temporary jobs, what that means in terms of permanent jobs. So that's something we're working on. Also, there is a group that you may not know of called Horse Country, which is the Bourbon Trail for horses. And it's been going now, I believe, for 7 or 8 years. And they're bringing people from all over the country, just like the Bourbon Trail, to tour our horse farms, our racetracks, our feed mills, our veterinary clinics. So we may reach out to them. And then the chairman and I are still working on a potential agenda regarding you've heard us talk about the big elephant in the room that we've been very clear about and open about, and that's the 1.5% tax rate, which is a tax on gross. And I'm going to continue to mention that because a tax on gross is very different than a tax on net. And we may hear some testimony from various points of view on what the effective tax rate is, the net tax rate, once you compute the payouts of the money going back to the bettors and the money going to purses, et cetera. So we're continuing to work on what we hope is an educational agenda moving forward, and we'll try to nail that down and let you know as we finalize it. Any other questions then for the day? I've tried to stick with Chairman Chickle and Chairman Koenig's desire to have 1-hour committee meetings, and for a guy who hasn't run a committee since 2012, I think we've done pretty well on that today. Chairman Koenig said he doesn't care about that, but I know that Chairman Chickle does. And since he's a member of my caucus, I care about what he says. Very well. Is there a motion to adjourn? A motion from Representative Cook. Is there a second? Second from Representative Gentry. All in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.